Oh, I got to click how I want it to look. There we go. We'll use that one. And so hopefully we can record it and I'll send it to you after the webinar's done and you can have your husbands listen. It's a really good one to have your husbands listen to. Okay, all right, let's see. Yay, I'm glad. All right, well, please continue to say hello and we're going to get started. Y'all, I know your time is valuable. I will try to make the most of your time. This is a 1-hour workshop. Kids, don't worry. You can survive it. You can survive 1 hour. Hey, Diana, welcome. So, all right, I'm going to get going. I'm going to try to take my glasses off. I'll put them on from time to time. It's, reading glasses. I can't see distance. You know the story. So it's called getting old. So once again, y'all, I'm sorry that we're not there live. Thank you so much for being here, for participating in this webinar. I know Carol Simpson at IDEA has worked so hard to make this be as smooth as possible for us vendors and then for you attendees, and to try to get you the information that you need. And so far it's gone so well. So a shout out to IDEA. Thank you for doing this. Every now and then where my screen is might cover up some of the words on my slides, but you'll get the main message. So you all, we're going to talk about what it means to be a gentleman. And it's interesting. I had an email actually just yesterday from someone. Well, I won't tell you where they're from, but from someplace. And it was an email. It wasn't the nicest email, but it was someone who really didn't think that etiquette was necessary today. And kind of the gist of the email is that, we're living in a more relaxed, I guess that's what the word she used, a more relaxed social setting these days, and just felt like etiquette was a little too stuffy and a little judgmental. She used a few other little phrases. And, I have had that kind of comment, not often, but every now and then I do get a comment like that. And what I know is I can't tell you how everyone in the world teaches etiquette, but you're going to hear today how I teach etiquette. Let me start by telling you the definition that I use for etiquette. Etiquette is helping those around you to feel valued and to feel comfortable. And that's it. That is the definition. Basically, whether we like it or not, or mean to or not, all day, every day, you and I are sending messages to people about how we feel about them through our actions or lack thereof. And so etiquette is trying to be more focused on how our own behavior impacts others. I'm going to give you an example that you're familiar with. And kids, you'll like this example. Let's talk about table manners really quickly. We're not really going to focus on that tonight, but let me talk about table manners in a way to tell you about what etiquette is. If I came to your home and sat down with your family and started dining with you, and I started eating like a pig, I was chewing with my mouth open, I was making a weird noise with my tongue, or maybe I sat down and I was finished with my plate by the time you were on your second bite. So I finished in a hurry and then I was ready to leave. Any of those kinds of behaviors would send all of you a message. The message would be, hey, I'm here for one person only, and that's myself. I don't care if I'm grossing you out or making you uncomfortable, because like I said, I'm just here for myself and to fill up my belly. Do you see why that is such a selfish behavior? When we don't care, or when we act like we don't care about the experience of other people at the table. Y'all, that's what etiquette is. Etiquette is showing that we care that everyone enjoys themselves, that everyone feels valued and important. And we do that based on our behavior. I see a few people saying hi. Let me say hello to you just to make sure we've welcomed everyone. Thank you about that definition. Yay, I'm glad your son, Kayla, is excited to be here. Okay, Cheryl Jackson is saying she doesn't see anything yet. Oh, I wish I could help you, but I'm going to tell you something, Cheryl. If you can hear me, I am recording this and I am going to send it out to all of you after we go through this. Okay, good. I can hear, she can hear now. Awesome. I think we need etiquette. Oh, good. Thank you, Cindy, for your support. When I logged in, I had a prompt to enable speakers. Okay, hopefully she's getting that worked out. Thank you, you all. Okay, let's jump in. So, all right, let me see how my presentation, let's see. Y'all, let me make sure my presentation is working. Hold on. Presentation, let me get there. There we go. It's there. And why is it not working? All right, hold on. Let me get my slides going. I did one of these just last weekend, and all I remember doing is pushing the enter button. So let me see what I'm doing wrong. No. Come on. Give me a second, y'all. I'm sorry. Come on. Let's see. It's okay if you can't end up seeing the slides, that's okay. But why aren't they working? Hold on a second. Use camera. Show. Y'all, technology. It's not all it's cracked up to be. I'm just here to tell you. Okay. Let me. There we go. There we go, y'all. Okay. I'm sorry for that. Okay. There we go. All right. So, yeah. Like, oh, it makes me nervous. Okay. So, one of the first things I teach everyone, ladies, gentlemen, kids, adults, is a proper introduction. Now, you all, because of COVID, handshakes may go by the wayside. It makes me sad to think about it. Maybe they'll come back, but of course, right now, none of us are shaking hands. However, I'm still going to teach you today because it is proper etiquette when everyone is safe and when we don't have a nasty virus going around. So we're going to go ahead and talk about it. The thing is, though, what we want to remember is that the way we introduce ourselves to others, it matters so much. When we meet someone, in the first couple of seconds, we usually form somewhat of an opinion of someone. Now, no, hopefully we don't judge people and judge whether they're a good person or a bad person, but we do make some judgments. For instance, we make judgments about, does this person have confidence? Is this person happy to be here? Do I want to get to know this person more? And we make those types of judgments based on someone's initial introduction, their body language, their smile, their energy. For instance, hey kids, right now, if I were to ask you if you think Mrs. Irvin has confidence, would you say yes or no? Do you think I have confidence? Do you think I have confidence in the material that I'm getting ready to teach you? I hope that your answer is yes. Thank you. Because that's the thing, is just in a couple of split seconds, just based on watching someone talk, we make some assessments about someone. And I want you to realize that. So a proper introduction covers a few things. You've got to smile. It's the difference in me saying, hi, my name is Monica Irvin. It's nice to meet you. Versus, hello, my name is Monica Irvin. It's so nice to meet you. I mean, which Monica would you want to meet? We have to have eye contact. Now, listen, I know you all have been taught about eye contact, but here's the etiquette rule. When you are meeting someone during an introduction, your eyes have to be glued in on their eyes 100% of the time. Now, if you're just in a casual conversation, your eyes can be on the other person's eyes about 90 to 95% of the time. You know, when we're in a long conversation with someone, of course, it's okay to break your gaze from time to time. In fact, you probably should so we don't scare someone as we're trying to stare a hole through their retina. But during an introduction, your eyes never leave the other person's eyes. For instance, I'm going to show you an example. What if I met you and did this? Hi, my name's Monica. It's nice to meet you. What do you think when my eyes are going up and down and up and down? It sends a message that I'm a little unsure of myself, that I'm not really happy or excited about meeting you. Here's what's interesting, you all. Studies show that people tend to trust people who have good manners more. People tend to trust people more who appear to have confidence. Because here's the thing, if you don't speak in a way that shows you have confidence, it's almost as if you're sending a message that you're unsure of yourself. And if you're unsure of yourself, well, why are you unsure of yourself? And are you unsure of the message, or are you unsure of who you are and what you're trying to be and what you're trying to teach others? So we don't realize it sometimes how many little messages we send by having confidence and speaking up. So we want to have a strong voice, and we want to have a firm handshake when things are safe. And so I do want to tell you about a handshake, though. I have a feeling we'll be shaking hands at some point again. But whenever, one of the most common mistakes that I get when someone shakes my hand, and I'm upside down here, so it's a little hard to show you, but is they go in just kind of halfway. But whenever we do shake hands with others, we want to take the whole hand of the other person, not a half hand, but a whole hand. And we shake it firmly. You all, firm does not mean that you cause pain to the person you're shaking hands with. You don't want them going, ow, that kind of hurt. You just want it to be firm, not wimpy or limpy, because once again, a firm handshake shows that you're confident. So kids and parents, practice with your kids. You know, kids, I run these manners camps every summer in Knoxville, Tennessee, where I live. And what's so fascinating to me is that one of the most common comments I get from parents after their children have just spent 4 days with me is they'll go, Mrs. Irvin, how did you give my child confidence? How did you take my child who was so shy and wouldn't talk to anyone, and now they're talking and she's talking and he's talking and she's making eye contact with people? Parents, the way I do that is this, is you have to teach the kids skills. We tend to be shy. We tend to hide when we're afraid that we're going to embarrass ourselves, when we're not exactly positive how to do it. Now, I realize that there are more reserved personalities, but parents, we've got to teach our children to do hard things. I had a child that it was much more difficult to say hello to others than my other 2 children. But did I still expect that son to say hello to others? Yes, absolutely. And it was harder for him. But we've got to make sure that we're not making excuses for our children who struggle a little bit with being more shy, because the fact is that once our children reach about age 5 or 6, you all, it's rude for our children not to be able to look at someone and say, hello, it's nice to meet you. And so as parents, we're going to teach them to do that. Like you're going to say, okay, we're getting ready to go through the Walmart checkout line. Make sure you say hello or good afternoon to the cashier. It's just little things like that, that if we just practice with our kids and get them used to acknowledging other people, that's what it means to be a gentleman and a lady. Parents, if we're going to raise gentlemen, they have to see what it looks like in our behavior. And that's why we're going to go through all of these skills today. Okay, we're going to keep going. Y'all, I'm sorry. I wish I could not wear my glasses. Okay, I'm on Chrome, and so that Chrome is what I normally use, so it should be working. Okay, yeah, we're just on the first slide, so we're going to keep going. All right, second slide. A gentleman is always looking for opportunities to serve. You all, I know you do this, and I know you know this. But I think sometimes we underestimate what the importance of the little things. Like, I know most of you try to open doors for others. I open as many doors as are ever open for me. I'm never going to go into a door without glancing over my shoulder to see if there's someone in my vicinity behind me. But here's the thing. This is the message that we're sending. When we stop for a second and hold the door for someone, we're sending a message. And that message is, I see you. You matter. I can stop my life for a second or two and serve you. And if I'm too busy to do that, well, then I've allowed myself to get too busy. Because if I'm too busy to do the most important things, which is showing others value, then I'm too busy. We've all had a door kind of shut on us, and it doesn't feel good because it almost feels like you're invisible. And so we want to not only just teach our children the skills, because I'm just like your kids. If I don't know the why behind why I'm doing something, I tend to resent it and I tend to not make it a priority. And that's why at the Etiquette Factory, we work so hard to help your children and adults know the why behind every skill, because then you can believe in it and know why it not only helps others, but helps us. Of course, we're always going to offer a hand. We're always going to look for ways to place others first. Let me give you an example of a gentleman and a lady. As you'll hear, you all of these skills, in fact, are related to both sexes, and so for boys and girls alike. But let me give you an example of what it means to teach our children to always be looking around to help someone. And y'all, I mean physically. I mean literally, when you walk out the door and you're headed into a store, you're going to remind your children, hey kids, let's keep our eyes open and see if there's someone that needs our help today. And literally, everyone is kind of scanning and looking around to see who might need our help. So one time I was at the Cincinnati Homeschool Convention. This was several years ago. My youngest son was, I think, about 14 at the time, and he was with me helping me in my booth. Well, earlier in this day, I did a workshop. And then the next day, this lady came up to my booth. So I'm going to brag for just a second, parents. Just indulge me. My kids were rotten too sometimes, but I'm going to tell you one time when one child was not rotten. But so I was at my booth. This lady comes up to me and she says, Monica, I was at your workshop yesterday and thank you so much and da-da-da-da. She goes, but I want to tell you something that you're going to be happy to hear. I said, awesome, tell me. She said, well, yesterday when I came to your workshop, I've got two little kids, like a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. And she said, my husband took the two little ones so I could just come listen to your workshop and enjoy it. And she said, after the workshop, when I met up with my husband, I was telling him all about you and the things that I learned. She said, and my husband said, honey, I'm all in. He said, listen what happened while you were at your workshop. He said, I went into the men's restroom because one of the two kids had to have a diaper change. And he said, so I was in there with the two kids, trying to wrangle the one child while changing a diaper in the men's restroom the other child. He said, all of a sudden, this teenage boy came up and said, excuse me, sir, would you want me to maybe entertain your son, talk to him for a minute while you try to change your other child's diaper? And the dad was like, yes, thank you. That would be awesome. So this teenage boy just kind of squatted down and played right there beside the dad with his son, or talked to him for a few minutes. The dad was able to change the diaper. The young man, the dad said thank you, and the young man went on his way. Well, the woman said, well, last night, Monica, while me and my husband were getting on the elevator, I saw you going up the escalator. And I was like, honey, there's that woman that taught the etiquette class. And he's like, honey, that boy standing beside her is that boy that was in the bathroom. And he's like, oh, we are going to buy whatever she's selling. Parents, it was my son that had helped that dad in the bathroom. Now, let me tell you that teaching my boys how to constantly be on the lookout took great effort. It took a constant reminding them, hey, son, remember, our job is to be a help. Our job is to look for those in need. Keep your eyes open. And it's just something that we said time and time again. A gentleman keeps his eyes open. And parents, that's something that we want to do for our children. So let's go on to the next one. You all, I'm sorry to those of you that are not having luck watching it. I hope that you'll be able to watch the replay. A gentleman's speech is above reproach, and his tongue is used for good, especially at home. Parents used to be, go back, I don't know, maybe 100 years ago now, maybe 50 years ago. Things have changed a lot in the last 50 years. I would say 50 years would be safe enough. But there used to be like these fine lines between what men and women would discuss when they were with the opposite sex, topics that you would discuss or not discuss at the dinner table or in certain company. Women wouldn't talk about women's stuff in front of men, and men wouldn't talk about man stuff in front of women. And we would try to keep the dinner table free of controversial or gross or just inappropriate conversation. And today, it seems like there's not any lines anymore. People just talk about anything and everything because they can. A lady and a gentleman know that just because you can doesn't mean that we should. I want you to think about yourself as a bearer of light. Every day, you and I can decide whether we're going to be a bearer of light to the world or a bearer of darkness. So when people run into you, when people have a conversation with you, do they walk away from that conversation feeling a little lighter, a little happier? Or do they walk away from that conversation feeling a little lower? Our conversation should uplift and encourage. It should never be full of criticism and complaining and negativity. Why? Well, because it's no fun to be around people who are negative and complaining and speaking about inappropriate things and maybe not using proper language. And what I mean by that is not talking like a Southerner, but maybe using inappropriate language. We want to bear light to others, especially inside our home, because I think inside our home it matters the most. A gentleman enjoys standing for others. You all, this is one of my favorite skills to teach. If you've heard me talk before, you probably have heard me teach this skill. One of the reasons it's my favorite skill to teach is because I know from my own personal experience what a difference living this skill can make in your home. If we saw the American flag being brought into a room, what would we do? Yeah, we would stand up, right? And why do we stand up? Well, we stand up because it's this small, tiny little way that we can do this physical act of going from a seated position to a standing position to show what that flag means to us. It's a way to show honor to that flag and to the men and women who have sacrificed so much protecting the freedoms that that flag represents. Let me give you the etiquette rule with standing. It is still polite, regardless of the grumbles that I might hear. It is still polite for gentlemen to stand for ladies. And it is still polite for children to stand for adults. Now, don't throw tomatoes at me, and you can't anyway, because I'm in Tennessee. But listen, let me explain what this might look like in your home. And I'd love for you to try it and give me your feedback. What this looks like in your home is that when mom says, "Hey family, it's time to eat dinner," which I hope and pray that you all eat around your dinner table at least a couple of times a week. It means that your family comes to the dinner table and everyone stands behind their chair and no one takes their seat until mom has sat down or the host. Why? Because it's this tiny little way that your family can show mom honor or whoever cooked dinner, the sacrifice that they made by preparing a meal. And then after mom has sat down, the children remain standing if there's any other elderly at the table. And then all of the ladies at the table sit down while the gentlemen remain standing. This means that your 5-year-old son is standing for his 13-year-old sister. Now, why would you do this? Because, parents, I know that you want to have honorable sons and sons that live with dignity and chivalry. You can't live an honorable life if you don't do honorable things. As parents, it's our job to create an atmosphere in our home where our children can experience sacrificing for others. And this is one tiny way that your sons can sacrifice for the women in their life. Now, if ever a gentleman is kind enough to stand for me and for any woman or girl, we ladies have to show our indeed deep gratitude. So we look them in the eye and say, "Thank you. Thank you so much for standing." If you want to increase the love between you and your spouse, if you want to increase the love between your family for each other, I dare you to try it. I'm the mom of 3 boys, and if you don't think that every time my boys will not take their seat until I've sat down, that it doesn't just re-endear me to these kids and to my husband, regardless of what might have happened earlier in the day or had been said earlier in the day, it's forgotten when those kids and my husband stand for me. Try it, parents. I worry so much about our society's direction. So often I get adults that I hear them complaining about this entitled generation. And I want to say, parents, who do you think is raising an entitled generation? Entitlement is a learned behavior. What did you think was going to happen when you continue to place your children before everyone else? For example, the last time that your family had a big family dinner, Christmas, Thanksgiving, maybe your church had a potluck. Who were the first people that fixed their plates? Who got to eat first? And I know what you're saying. It was the kids, wasn't it? 99% of you, it was the children. Because we've gotten in this mindset that, oh, we've got to get the kids all fed, make sure they have everything they need. And then once the kids are fed, then us adults will eat. And I know what you're thinking, because remember, I'm a parent too. You're thinking the temptation that, well, I'll be able to enjoy and relax my meal if the kids are fed. Parents, I'm like, what in the world? What? You think it's not possible to teach our children to be patient, to quietly and patiently wait for the adults to go first? You think it's in your child's best interest to allow them to fix their plate before their grandmother, who's probably spent 2 weeks preparing for Thanksgiving dinner, and then she's going to fix her plate last? What in the world? It didn't used to be that way. We've turned the tables, and then we want to complain why our kids feel entitled. Do you think I cared that my boys were always the last ones in the line? No, never. And maybe at first they cared, but I want you to know, here's what happens, parents. You are giving your children opportunities to feel honorable, to feel dignified. Eventually, my boys felt proud that they were the ones last in line, because what happens is they were sacrificing themselves for others. Parents, we have to look for opportunities to help our children experience sacrificing themselves, sacrificing what they want for others. Sometimes, every now and then, when I teach this workshop and I get to this part, I'll have a mom that says, oh, Monica, I don't want to ask my kids to stand for me. I don't need that. No, you don't, but your kids do. Now, mothers, wives, I don't recommend that you go to your husband after this workshop and say, hey, honey, and from now on, I want you to stand for me. It's not going to go very well. But have them listen to this workshop and let me try to convince them why it's so good for your kids to stand. All right, I'm scared to look at your comments when I teach this part. So tell me what your thoughts. Yeah, you know what? Let's see who said that. Let me back it up just a little bit. Hey, Megan, I'm not saying you can't ever do that or you shouldn't. And honestly, I'm giving you all suggestions. It is your family. I realize that. But I would encourage you, Megan, to every now and then, at least once a week, have your children wait for you to be served. They need to show mom honor, you all. They need to. Oh, Sandy, I love that. I love it, love it, love it. It's never too late. Parents, let me, I know this is, different. And the thing is I think this path of chivalry is becoming a more isolated path. One of the first things you and I as parents and just as people that we've got to decide is, are you and I okay with standing alone? Are you and I okay if our family does things differently than everyone else? Because honestly, I can't help what anyone else does. I can worry about Monica and I can worry about my children, and that's all I really have influence over. And it's not about judging people who don't do it. It's not. It's just about giving our children a way to feel good about themselves. Parents, we have so many kids today, young and old and teenagers, who struggle so much with feeling valued themselves. We have so many kids that struggle with different forms of just self-degradation and depression and different things. And I'm not saying this fixes everything, but what I am saying is I believe as our society has continued to strip away opportunities for kids to sacrifice for others, I think it has been harmful to their spirit. All right, we got to keep going. That went way too long about standing. A gentleman knows the boundaries of physical affection. So I wish I could do a whole workshop just on this topic. But for now, let me just summarize. So what this means, kids and adults, is that once we reach the age of adolescence, which is about 11, 12, 13, we are supposed to keep our hands to ourselves, period. A gentleman never instigates, initiates hugs, kisses, squeezes, tickles to girls or women in casual relationships without their permission. But it's really hard to get permission, so we just don't do it. Basically, gentlemen, here's the rule. You see, ladies, girls, old and young, it doesn't matter how old and wrinkly we get, we feel fear regularly. You see, when we're walking to our car in the Walmart parking lot at night by ourselves, we're thinking about it. When we're on an elevator alone and a man gets on an elevator with us, we're thinking about it. We're thinking about the risk that if a man wanted to harm us and the situation presented itself, that more than likely we would be victims. Now, moms, I know we've got kids here, so I'll keep this child friendly. But moms and dads, we need to talk about this topic with our children, with our sons, regularly as they reach adolescence and go through their teen years. Meaning we have to teach our gentlemen that to honor women, we have to keep a safe distance from women who don't know us. I was coming down the elevator at a hotel about 2 years ago. I was just headed to the ground floor, and the elevator opened at a floor, and I was on the elevator by myself, and this man was in front of me, and he started to get on the elevator, and then he looked, I could tell he looked around and saw that I was alone, and he goes, "I'll catch the next one." I've never had that happen before. I couldn't believe that he did that. I was so grateful. I was so touched by that. Now, gentlemen, I'm not saying you might wait all day long if you're at a busy hotel, but I just appreciated so much that a gentleman was paying attention. One time I went to pick up my son Sawyer at his co-op, and he was probably around 13, and I had taught him this skill. We had talked about the importance of this. And anyway, so I'm in my car waiting, and I see Sawyer coming up the steps from co-op with 3 girls around him. I was like, oh, this kid. Anyway, I was sitting there, and so he looks up and sees me, and he kind of holds his finger up like, oh, one sec, Mom. And about that time, I saw him and watched him just instantly turn and go boom, boom, boom. He hugged those 3 girls just like that. And I was like, Sawyer. So he gets in the car, and after I ask him how his day went, I go, hey, bud, by the way, I noticed that you hugged those 3 girls. He's like, oh, Mom, yeah, I didn't even think about it. And I said, here's the thing, son. I go, maybe they didn't mind. But what if one of them did mind? I said, by just doing that quickly, you put those young ladies in an awkward position. Parents, one of the most common questions I get when I do teen tracks is I will get girls that will ask me, Mrs. Irvin, what do I do when a guy or a man tries to hug me and I really don't like hugs from people besides my dad and grandpa? It's important that we teach this skill. In fact, one teenage girl said, in fact, Mrs. Irvin, it's my minister. She said, every Wednesday night after we finish our youth activity, our minister stands at the back door and he hugs all the youth goodbye as we leave. And I know he's just trying to make us feel good and show us that he cares about us, but it makes me uncomfortable. And I said to her, and it should make you uncomfortable, and he should not be doing that. It's not appropriate. Parents, we need to talk about it. And some of these topics are sensitive topics, but a gentleman understands the boundaries of physical affection. And remember, etiquette is helping those around us to feel valued and comfortable. And so we need to be careful with our physical affection. I see a comment. Let me ask. I know. So Alicia says, I love hugs, but I like it if a man, friends, not my husband, says, can I give you a hug? I usually just tell them. Here's the thing, Alicia, I get it. You all, I love hugs too. I do. But even women need to be careful, because I had a man once that says, oh, Mrs. Irvin, at my church, we all hug everybody. We're a hugging group of people. And I'm like, look, I get it. I get it. But I promise you, there are a couple of people in your church that wish y'all didn't hug. Now, when you have a personal relationship with someone, you've grown very close, a personal friendship, y'all, then I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about your lifelong best friend, your other couple that you and your husband always do stuff with. That's different. But I'm talking about more casual relationships. The thing is that you don't want to be that person that other people wish would quit hugging. And the other thing that we don't realize is that we don't realize the personal experiences that other people have had in their lives that make them sensitive to physical affection. And so we need to be sensitive as well. Let's move on. A gentleman teaches and counsels, not condemns. You all, this kind of goes back to the conversation I was talking about earlier, but I just want to ask you this question. What's the difference in when a parent counsels with their children versus discipline versus discussion? I guess discussion and counsel is about the same. My point is I believe that the way we interact with our children and our wife and our husband, our spouse, it sets the tone for our children and how they're going to interact with their future family. We've got to be so careful and realize that our words matter so much. I know many of you still play in your brain words that were said to you when you were a child that hurt. It's so hard sometimes to get words out of our brain. And so a gentleman is very careful that when it's time to talk about important issues with their family, that he is a counselor, that he asks lots of questions, that he has a gentle voice. So next week, I think on Tuesday, you all, I'm doing my second webinar for the IDEA families called Disciplining Your Children Without Breaking Their Spirits. I highly, highly recommend that you attend that webinar to get more information on this topic. A gentleman always keeps his word. If I were to ask your children today, if dad or mom tell you that they're going to do something, what's the likelihood of it happening? Is it high, medium, or low? If your kids would not say to me, oh, it's high, Mrs. Irvin. If my dad says we're going fishing on Saturday, count it done, we're going. Then that's where we want to be. But if your kids would say, well, it's about a 50-50 chance, then we've got work to do. How are we supposed to raise honest, dependable, word-keeping children if they don't see what that looks like with their parents? And so we want to work really hard to do what we say we're going to do. All right. Yes, we're going to talk about it. A gentleman has good hygiene. Y'all, I know homeschoolers get a bad rap sometimes, especially in this department. I'm going to tell you, I think we've earned the bad rap in this department. Now, remember, I'm a homeschool mom too. And so thank you for your comments, Tanya. Um, you all, we're trying to prepare our children for personal and professional success. We're trying to prepare our children to be independent of us, to be able to function in society and be successful. They need to bathe, people. I personally believe kids need to take a bath every day. Yep, I said it. I think they do. Remember, we're trying to prepare our children to be successful with their peers. We're trying to develop habits. Habits happen when you do it regularly. I don't think it's serving our children any purposes that's for their benefit. When just because we're homeschooled and we don't really have to go anywhere today, that we stay in our pajamas all day, or we allow our children to come and start school with bad breath because they haven't brushed their teeth, with their hair sticking straight up because they haven't showered, and not dressed. Parents, we want our kids to be successful. And so they need to learn how to take care of themselves without your voice in their ear. Do you behave differently when you're showered, clean, dressed, ready to go versus in your pajamas and not bathed? I do. When I take a shower every morning, it gets me ready. I'm like, okay, let's go. Let's go to work. Let's make it happen. Let's make something happen today. I don't think it helps our children to be lazy in good hygiene. I think it hurts their future. A gentleman has good hygiene. A gentleman always honors and upholds the highest moral standards when interacting with any lady, regardless of her actions, beliefs, behavior, speech, etc. Basically, what this boils down to is that a gentleman doesn't change how he treats women based on their behavior, but he treats every single woman that he comes into contact with the utmost respect and the utmost honor. And he doesn't make a difference. A gentleman always remembers that his highest priority is to protect the reputation of the lady or ladies he is with. What does this mean? It means that, let me give you an example. If I had taught this skill to my teenage son, let's say my teenage son has a friend named Sarah. And Sawyer and Sarah are just friends. They're working on a project together. And so after school today, they're going to meet at Sarah's house to work on this project. Sawyer goes to Sarah's house, knocks on the door. Sarah answers. And she goes, "Oh, hey, Sawyer, come on in. My mom had to run to the store, but she said you could come on in and we could get started." If Sawyer knew this etiquette rule, he would know that he cannot go into Sarah's house without a parent there. Not because of what they might do because they're alone, but because by going into Sarah's home without her parent present could put Sarah's reputation at risk. And as a gentleman, he would not do that. That's what it means. Parents, we've got to talk to our children about the logistics of these skills. It's about helping our sons realize their obligation to others. I knew that whenever my sons left me, whenever my sons were going to an activity where females would be present, that if I just said, "Remember, make sure you protect the lady's reputation who you're with," that would protect my sons as well. But when their focus is on their goal to protect others, it puts their focus outward. We always do better when our focus is outward. And I believe that my sons took great honor in doing that. I believe it's what helped them. They wanted to be the one to make sure and not place a lady in harm's way, physically or reputation wise. Talk about it with your sons. It, of course, means the same thing with us. Going back to that real quick, I'll tell you a little story. I had a man in one of my workshops, and he said, Mrs. Irvin, me and my wife live by this same rule. Me and my wife had agreed that we would never be with someone of the opposite sex alone. We would never ride in a car alone with someone of the opposite sex, never go to a business meeting alone with someone of the opposite sex. He said, but this one time, he said, my car broke down and I had to get it towed. So I was waiting on the tow truck to come, and then I was going to ride with the tow truck driver to wherever they were towing his car. He said, well, when the tow truck driver showed up, it was a woman. And I was like, uh-oh. And he said, so I texted my wife and said, hey, honey, the tow truck driver's a woman. What do you want me to do? And she's like, oh, just go. It's fine. But, at least he asked. At least he let his wife know that he was going to be in a truck with a woman driving to the, repair shop. I think that's what it means. It means being careful and respectful and mindful and doing the best we can. A gentleman always does his very best to ensure the physical safety of all women. Now, please know that I don't believe that women are helpless. But it sure feels good to know that the men in our life are looking out for our physical safety. I'll give you an example. What would this mean? If I had taught this etiquette skill to my sons, maybe I took one of my teenage boys to the movie theater and dropped him off to meet a bunch of his friends to watch a movie. I go back to the movie theater afterwards to pick him up. If my son knew this skill, he might come up to me and say, oh, hey, Mom, listen, Rebecca's mom hasn't showed up yet, so I'm just going to stand over there and wait with her until she does. That's what this etiquette skill means. You all, I'm going to have to wrap it up. I just keep talking. So I'll show you 2 more slides, okay, and then we'll wrap this one up. A gentleman has the courage to speak for himself. What does this mean? It means, parents, that we teach our children to speak up, and we start doing this really young. It means that, when you go to a restaurant and your kids, if they can talk, they can speak for themselves. So they order for themselves. We're not ordering for our children. It means when we're at the grocery store that we tell our kids, hey, kids, or we ask our child, instead of us going and asking where the bathroom is, we ask our child to go ask where the bathroom is. And we watch and we make sure that they're safe, but we're the ones getting our kids to speak up for themselves. And so we just start early getting our kids to talk. And then when they run into issues, we role play with them and we help them to come up with the right conversation, but we don't do it for them. Oh goodness, you all, I'm sorry. Have you all been able to see the slides? I see that someone says she hasn't. Okay. All right. I just saw someone that said she hadn't been able to see any of the slides. So, oh goodness. Okay, Jamie, I'm curious. How does everyone handle public bathrooms and children? Do you allow them to go alone? Oh goodness, we can do a whole little segment on that too, you all. I'll give you my personal opinion is no, never, don't ever let your kids go in a public bathroom alone. I just don't do it. Now, what age do you start letting them? That's hard. As a mother, if I see kids, boys 12 and under that look 12 and under in the women's bathroom and they're with their mother, I get it. Like, I know why they're in there with their mother. And so I would, in my personal opinion, they would have to be 12, 13 to go in public bathrooms by themselves. That's my personal opinion. Yes, you all, I'm going to give you the slides. I'm going to give you a recording of this workshop. So don't you worry about a thing. Okay, let me see which ones I still haven't done for you. Let me just see. Okay, y'all, we only have 2 more. So if you'll go with me 5 minutes over, I'll get through the next 2 slides. So a gentleman's focus is on the other person, not himself. You all, this just goes to the rule that we've all been in the company of someone who does all the talking. Let me give you a very easy etiquette rule to help us not be the one who hogs all the attention in the room. So the etiquette rule is that it's never polite to speak more than 2 minutes at a time before we close our mouth and we pass the torch to someone else. So the way I would encourage you all to practice this is at the dinner table. So ask questions. At the Etiquette Factory, we have some really fun dinner time questions, but just ask questions. So for instance, you're at the dinner table and you're like, okay, we're all going to tell each other what is one of the funniest dreams we've had or scariest dreams, or when was a time you felt afraid? And we all go around the table and we talk about it, but we literally set a 2-minute timer. We want our kids and our spouse to get in the habit of what 2 minutes feels like. You all, this is about showing respect to others and about taking turns and making other people feel valued. It's hard to make others feel valued when we're the only one talking. So this is a really great etiquette rule to practice. Okay, a gentleman has a great ability to remain calm. Now, this one is for dads, you all. I might be wrong about this, but I believe that dads and husbands really carry this mantle. What I mean by this is that when the house is on fire, somebody has to keep it together. And I just don't think us women were created for it to be us most of the time. I know that when dad starts losing it, a family suffers. We want to rely on our dad to be the one that keeps it together in times of crisis. You know, dads can be such an instrument of calm when your family has taken a blow and the dad and husband is going, it's all right, family, we got this. We're going to stick together and we'll get through it like we've gotten through everything. It brings such peace in a home. If wives and children have to tiptoe around dad because they don't know what kind of mood dad's in, it hurts the family. And so a gentleman has a great ability to remain calm in the storms of life. You all, let me give you some information that you're going to need. So first of all, thank you. Thank you for being here. I felt like I was a little rushed, so I apologize for that. I am going to email you all, not right after the webinar, but later tonight. My daughter-in-law's birthday is today, so I've got to run, have a dinner right after I say goodbye to you. But later tonight, I'm going to send you an email, so look for it. It will come from Monica@theetiquettefactory.com. I'm going to give you a link to the recording of this webinar. I'm going to give you a link to the slides of this webinar. And I'm going to give you a link to our most popular products for your children. And so right here, and you can go ahead and take a picture of this if you want to, a screenshot. So this is how you get the show notes. You go to this link and type in the password gentleman, and you'll get the show notes. I'll send it to you in the email. if you have not subscribed to my podcast, I would love for you to subscribe to it. Every week or almost every week, we do a parenting workshop. And I know you're familiar with our website, but let me tell you one more piece of news that's really exciting. So, you all, only until Saturday, we have a new parenting membership site that is launching June the 1st. And so I'm going to send you a link within the email that tells you about this new parenting membership site. But you have until Saturday to become a founding member of this site. So this parenting membership site, Rise Up, is basically every single month you are going to be in a group being coached. You're getting a parenting coach, which is myself, in this group, but you're also getting this tribe of parents where we're going to work together every month on parenting topics. You're going to get a lesson every month. We're going to do live Facebook and live webinars every week, one a week, where we can do question and answers. Anyway, I'll tell you all about it in the link that I send you tonight, so please look at that. You all, we work really hard at the Etiquette Factory to help you teach your children these skills. I just went through about 10 to 12 skills. We teach your children over 150 skills throughout our programs. We teach them one skill at a time. You know how so often when you and I are teaching our kids manners, we tend to teach manners in the moment when you're correcting bad behavior because, that's when you think about it. You see your child do something wrong and you're like, honey, you can't say that. That's not polite. Well, what we've learned at the Etiquette Factory is that it's really not the optimal time for kids to learn in the moment when they're being corrected. Because, when you're being corrected, you tend to kind of harden your heart, your defenses go up because you're trying to protect yourself. And so we've learned to have greater success is it just needs to be talked about when no one's in trouble. No one didn't just do it wrong. And so we just want you to make it a part of your school day, just one little etiquette lesson a day. And you're going to see such a difference with your children. So all of the information, I'm going to send you all of that later tonight in an email. So watch for it. Y'all, thank you. Thank you for being here. Hey, if you haven't done it yet, register for the webinar that's next Tuesday, The Disciplining Your Children. You'll love it. It's a good workshop. Can I answer any questions? I'm sorry that I wasn't able to read all of your comments, but if I can answer any questions, I'll stay here as long as you need me to. Oh, y'all, thank you. I appreciate that. Tanya and Brittany, thank you. Catherine, y'all, thank you. Yes, Paul, it's discipline with love so you don't break your child's spirit. You'll see it listed under the Etiquette Factory on your idea, on the idea website. Or you know what I'm talking about, the fair stuff. So, okay, awesome. Yes, you can register now for it. Go ahead. It's up, so you can register now. We only have 100 spots, so please register. All right, you all have a great rest of your day. Thank you again for being here, and bless you all. Have a good evening. Bye. Thanks, kids, for being here. Thank you. Bye, you all.